Hey designers, and welcome back. Happy Monday to you all. You know what that means. Go grab your favorite cup of hot cocoa, a few of your favorite cookies, pull up a chair, and sit and chat with us a while in today's episode of Cocoa and Cookies. Happy Monday, you guys. It is already January. We have a special guest today.
Where?
And you guys have sent in some pretty good questions for him. I've only read you one, maybe two?
One.
I think I've only read him one, so this is going to be off the cuff. There's a couple questions for both of us, but mostly they wanted to hear from you today. All right, let's show our cups. This are our mugs today, our little snowmen. These came to us as a Christmas gift from one of you. We have some pretty great YouTube friends, huh?
Yes.
Got some great stuff for Christmas this year. Thank you very much. Especially thank you for hanging with us all this time. Some of you have been with us from the very beginning, and we certainly appreciate it. So I sent out the call for questions yesterday.
Yeah.
And we got some. If you guys aren't following on social media, then you really need to do that, because I always let you guys know ahead of time when we're going to be filming to give you a chance to get your questions in through either Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. So definitely hop on over and follow there. I'll have all the links for you down below in the description box. We're still trying to figure out the YouTube Live. You haven't had a chance to look at it with me at all. We have been busy. If you guys have been following the vlogs, then you know that. I mean, I don't think we've had a down minute
Not much.
at all. So, but I did ask around, and somebody had mentioned to me the Google Hangouts. Somehow you can edit, somehow you can link the Google Hangouts with YouTube instead of using YouTube Live with the other thing we downloaded. I don't know how it all works, but hopefully we'll get that figured out soon, you guys. So until then, we just have to do it this way. Either way, even when we start going live, I'm going to have to let you guys know ahead of time when we're going to be on, or when I'm going to be on. You won't be on with me too often because you usually work.
Yes, usually.
But you're on vacation. This last day of vacation.
That's it.
New job starts tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah.
All of you will remember, if you followed through Vlogmas, then you will know that Hub's got a promotion. And the new job starts tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow morning.
So, you excited about that?
I am.
You ready for that?
I am.
Ready for the change?
Let's go.
So, anyway, you've been off since the day before Christmas Eve.
Yes.
Thursday before Christmas was your last day.
Yep.
So, you guys have noticed him around in the vlogs a lot more last week because he's been off work. And I always like having you home. And one of these days, maybe we'll have a business where we can work together and you won't have to leave home.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, that would be really cool. So, all right, you ready to jump into some questions?
Let's jump.
All right, we're going to be looking on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram throughout this time and answer some of your questions. I've been enjoying the Cocoa and Cookies this way. You guys have been sending in some really great questions that have at least made me have to stop and think, because I've been doing it by myself up till now. Okay, I don't see any on Facebook, so let's go check Twitter. You guys need to always be watching. You never know when I'm going to post it. All right, nothing on Twitter either, so let's check Instagram. I think most of our questions came in through Instagram this time. All right, so I'm just going to go down the list. And I'm going to ask you the questions. Some of these I'm going to let you answer before I answer, because they always hear from me. And they're interested in what you got to say. So, how the hubby became a police officer, and if this is the career that you wanted all along.
I don't know if it's something that I've always wanted to do. It's something that I thought about every once in a while. And then in high school, I actually thought about going into the FBI. And then that kind of changed a little bit, and then my senior year is when I got saved, and I actually had thought about going to school to be a youth pastor, and then that kind of changed, and I just personally felt the calling more directed towards law enforcement, so I entered the police academy in 1992.
And the reason why that happened is because Al Palmquist came to our church, some of you, or Joe McCutcheon came, who worked with Al.
Right.
And so some of you have probably heard of one or the other or both of them. And whenever you talked to Joe, they had a ministry to where whenever they would arrest like prostitutes or drug addicts and stuff like that, they would actually bring them to like a halfway house to minister to them and just radically change their lives. And that's when you started thinking, well, I can blend ministry and law enforcement together. And so that's kind of why you changed your mind on that.
Right.
So thanks, Mr. Joe. If you happen to click this link from Facebook and you're watching, that has been the path because of your influence. So how did you get into it was the other part of her question. Like, how did you go ahead and make the steps to going into law enforcement?
Well, we have a police academy that's relatively close to us. So I just did some research and found out what I had to do to enter into the academy. And
we were already married because we married under the assumption that you were going into ministry. I did not know law enforcement was going to be part of the package. I can't say it would have changed things, but it might would have, because it's a hard life. It is a hard life, and there are a lot of young guys who come on the force that have issues with their wives being able to, because the constant worry. Like every time you guys walk out the door, the worry and the fear that we have, are we ever going to see you again? Are you going to come home today? And it's very stressful, very stressful. Even now that you're in the office, it's still stressful because at any minute somebody could walk up to the office to sabotage you guys while you're there. I mean, just being in the office doesn't make you any safer. And so it's, I would have probably had to think long and hard on that one because it is such a, it's a strain, it's a stress. It really is. It's not a job for everybody, and a lot of marriages don't make it.
No.
A lot of law enforcement marriages don't make it. So anyway, that's how it was when we first got married. So you went to police academy while we were married.
Yep.
I was working at the bank part-time at that time, and you were working a full-time job, but you remember you got laid off for a while.
Right. For a couple months.
Yeah. That actually worked out pretty good because it gave you more time to study.
Right.
So, I mean, it was kind of a blessing in disguise, but at first we were like, oh man, what are we going to do now? Because you were drawing unemployment since you were laid off. It was a temporary layoff. The business didn't have, he was building bridges.
Right.
Y'all didn't have a lot of contracts. And so it was just a temporary thing until more contracts came in. So we knew it wasn't permanent, but it was a pretty big strain for a while. You had unemployment and I only had part-time, and you were still going through the police academy.
Right.
So people in our church helped you out. You remember that? You remember how whenever we...
Yeah, because one of the things we had issues with was coming up with the money. And it got brought up in one of the services, and somebody actually donated some money.
Yeah, didn't they buy your gun? Did they help you with your gun, or did they just pay
my dad bought my gun.
Yeah, your dad bought your gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was such a huge blessing. Helped you out tremendously to be able to do that. So that's kind of how all that started. So let's see, she had a second part to her question. Let's see what that was. Dina, that's for me. Why did you want to become an ordained pastor? Was this a calling from God? That's a great question because I never had desire for ministry. It was supposed to be him. At least that's what I thought. I grew up in a pastor's home. My dad is a pastor, and so I grew up a PK, and that just was not, I guess probably most of all because I was a woman, and although our church has always supported women in ministry, there's biblical foundation for women in ministry, but that's a whole nother video in itself. It wasn't the fact that I didn't think women could be in ministry, it was just that as a woman, that wasn't something that I pursued. My dream whenever I was younger was to be an attorney. I should have been one.
Yes.
Tell them why the look.
Because you are very, very analytical. You can be argumentative in a good way, and that's what lawyers do. They argue.
And I can be pushy till I get my point across, huh?
True.
So anyway, that was my dream. That's what I wanted to do. And then the older that I got, I just got to thinking, I want to have children. I want to have a family. And I didn't want to work having children because my philosophy, my opinion is, and yours as well, if you're going to have kids, raise them.
That's right.
Don't ship them off to somebody else to raise them. And so we knew that we didn't want to have to put our kids in daycare, or we didn't want to have other family raise our children just for me to work outside the home. So kind of my ideals began to change the older that I got into high school. And so we were married a good long time. I was 31. I was 30 or 31 before I ever had any desire towards ministry at all. And I had been a Christian all that time, but I wouldn't say I was radically sold out to God. You know how that goes.
Right.
Pretty much just going to church, call yourself a Christian. But really, honestly, if I would have died in that condition, I don't know that I really was right with God. Because we can say we love God, but yet not align our lives with His Word. And so we're really not okay with Him, although we think we are. And so I was around 30 and had a radical transformation in my walk with God. And when I got serious with Him and sold out to Him completely, He began stirring something in me. And I knew, okay, God has something for me. And it's not, you know, the kids were a little bit older at that time, about 6 and 4. They weren't infants anymore. And I knew that, okay, I can step out and do Sunday school, or I really wanted to start with a MOPS program.
Yeah.
That's what I had looked into, mothers of preschoolers. And we already had one here where we live, and so there wasn't any chance to start one. So I went and sat down and talked to our pastor at the time, and I told him, I said, I just feel like there's something stirring inside. I don't know what it is, but, you know, we would like to just start Sunday school and see what happens. And so it just all went from there.
Snowballed.
Yeah, and I never thought that I would be a minister. I never thought that I would become ordained. I never thought that I'd be standing up in front of congregations preaching sermons. Just never thought that I would. But when God started calling and started stirring, you just follow Him one step at a time. And then it just kind of, well, like you said, it just snowballs. It just goes where it's supposed to go, as long as you're taking steps of obedience. And, you know, you don't really put a lot of thought in it. You just obey one step at a time. And so here we are, all these years later, doing what God's called us to do. So it's kind of funny, though. We joke about it often, because you felt the stirring towards youth ministry and thought it would be you, and I thought it would be him. Then he changed his mind and felt like God was stirring him towards using law enforcement as the medium to capture people who really needed Jesus. And that was the direction we lived for a long time. Then when God started stirring with me all along, we're right back in youth ministry at our church. And so it's kind of like the call, the desire for youth ministry was always there. Just in the very beginning, we just kind of had it wrong. We thought it was going to be you and we do it together. Don't get me wrong. It's not like, oh, it's just the Dina show. We do it together, but the more vocal part of the ministry is through me, and God is still using you in the law enforcement, so it all comes together. What you laughing at?
Just you think?
I think what?
You're the vocal one?
As if y'all couldn't tell. Matter of fact, sometimes when you're on here with me, people have made snide little comments about how I talk too much and don't let you talk. And that it must be very annoying to live with me. Is that true?
I'm here to tell you I'm okay with that.
Answer the second question. Is it annoying to live with me?
No.
Oh my goodness, yeah, we get all kinds of comments, you guys. So anyway, that's just kind of how it all happened, but great questions on that one. All right, here we go. We've got another question, and this one says, what are your thoughts on your kids dating? Ooh, this is a good one. I'm going to let you go first on that.
They can't.
Okay, but what's your thoughts behind that? Well, Kristen can now. She's 19.
Well,
She's
an adult. She can more or less somewhat do what she wants, but she's still living at home too. So, far as our son, we hold true to the philosophy that they should be doing group dating and not one-on-one dating, because studies just show that people get to know each other better when they're in a group setting versus putting on a facade with one another and trying to put their best foot forward and being somebody that they're really not. Mm-hmm. Versus being a group setting, you kind of just let your hair down and you are just who you are. And that's how you really get to know somebody. And then of course you take out the equation of doing things or being put into situations where you should not be in, and things can happen that you don't want or need to happen.
Yeah.
So
very true. And we know from our own experience too, if you really think back, you know, whenever we had started dating in high school, or going together back then, that's what it was called, different lingo, different time. You have jealousies that come into play. You were jealous of me, I was jealous of you. Matter of fact, in my senior year of high school, I didn't even finish out cheerleading the basketball season because you really didn't like me cheering and wearing the short little skirts and being around all the guys. And so I willingly gave that up because of him. But what if we would have broken up? Then it would have been like I had given all that up and then weren't even with you anyway. You know what I mean?
which I was wrong.
And I was jealous of you. You know, you would stand out there and talk to some of the girls, and I would be like, why were you talking to her? You know, all the little jealousies that go into play. And so we both, of course, we both had insecurity issues that we've had to work on through the years, and that propelled a lot of that. But, you know, whenever I think back on that, and I think, you know, we were just kids, and we really weren't fully enjoying the rest of our childhood, per se, because we were wrapped up in these thoughts in a relationship that really we weren't quite old enough for, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah, and we got married. I was 17. Right out, I graduated in June. We got married in July. He was 19, so we were very young. And I am telling you guys, it is only the grace of God that we've been together this long, don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, we've had some rough patches, you guys. And we were young. We had so much that we needed to work through. And that's a whole nother thing. We can touch on all that in a real talk, because we're going to start the real talks back for you guys. But it was rough. And so whenever I look at these kids nowadays, I definitely agree. You get to know people better by watching them in a group setting, because they're just who they are. You know, when we're in youth group and we watch a guy and a girl kind of pull off together because they're starting to like each other, you see them change. Like, they put on this facade. She wants to be what she thinks he wants her to be, and she's not even being her true self. And that's why a lot of times whenever people get married within that first year, it's like this, whoa, I didn't know you were like this. Because you're just putting on a show the whole time you're dating. You know, you're going to eat most delicately, women will. They don't want to eat normal because they're in front of a guy, or, you know, just different little things that they just pretend. But when these kids are off in a big group and they may like someone, or they may be attracted to someone, have a crush, whatever, but they still are just themselves because they've got their buddies around, she's got her friends around, and the real them shines. And I think that's really when you can see the true character of who someone is as you're praying and seeking God on if this is going to be the person for you. So, can they date? I think that it's not that we won't let them like another person or want to go steady or any of that kind of stuff, but it's right now we encourage them that, well, Kristen's 19. She can do what she wants to now. She's able to make her own decisions. But for Bub, until he's 18, we're going to encourage him, no single dating, no being off just with a girl on your own. Get to know her in that kind of context, because he's going to get to know the real her better. And, you know, Mom and Daddy have a lot to say about that.
At least for 9 more months.
Yeah. So anyway, that's just kind of where that stands. Not opposed to them liking people, but we do really guide them pretty strictly on what to look for, because with our experience with marriage counseling, with our experience with each other, we have a little bit more wisdom, obviously, than they do, and we can see patterns of behavior in people that we know would be a huge clash and be a potential for a lot of problems down the road. And, you know, the strongest marriage is really only as strong as the weakest person. And there are a lot of issues. I wholeheartedly believe in premarital counseling, but that's a whole other thing. We're getting way off track. We can cover all that in a real talk if you guys want us to, but let's move on for time's sake here so we get to all the questions. The next question says, when you and hubby go out on a date together, what do you like to do? You answer that first.
Eat. Typically, we try to find a decent restaurant, and we just try to enjoy our time together. But then we also like, if we stay local, we kind of walk down by the river. And if we go closer towards the beach, a lot of times we'll go to the beach and just walk on the beach.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing to do. I like to walk on the beach with you. More so at night, because sometimes in the daytime it's just too hot, let's be honest. But I do love to go walk on the beach at night. That's my favorite thing to do. Like every date night, if we could, I would go eat and then go to the beach. Because there are sometimes we just take our blanket out there and just sit for a long time. Just sit, because it's quiet, it's peaceful. You relieve all the stress and just, I don't know, that's my happy place. That's where I really, really love to be. So that's my idea of the perfect date.
Yep.
All right, so let's look here. We got another one. What is your favorite outfit that your wife wears?
Well, I think you look good in everything.
Oh, good answer.
But I guess my favorite is, I like your shirts that kind of have the zebra print.
Oh, you do?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
And I mean, anything you wear as far as your pants or jeans.
Okay, cool. I didn't know you liked my zebra shirts. All right, so that brings us to our next question. And all the leads are coming from Instagram today. Let me just double check Facebook real quick to make sure nothing came in there. But I don't think so. I think everybody's on Instagram this week. Never know from week to week where you guys are hanging out. All right, let's see. No, okay, 2 just came in through Facebook. So let's see. Hubs is a nice looking man. So why is he camera shy?
I just never have been one to be on that side of the camera. I'd rather be on the other side taking the pictures.
You don't like to see yourself in pictures and stuff.
No.
So it doesn't matter how many times people tell him that he's nice looking or whatever. You don't feel that you want to be seen.
I just never have cared to see myself in pictures.
Yeah, so he kind of gets a little gun shy with that. Same way with our daughter, because y'all will notice she doesn't really like to be on camera either. All right, here's another one from Facebook. How do you deal with your kids dating? Do you have rules? Okay, so that's another person that asked. I don't know if I think this is a separate person. I think that's 2 different people. Sometimes it's hard for me to know because Instagram names are usually like initials and stuff. But I think that we pretty much covered all of that, how we deal with them dating and do we have rules. With Kristen now, we guide her, but with her being 19, like we said earlier, she's pretty much, she knows how we feel, and hopefully we've imparted enough wisdom to her that she'll make some wise decisions, but it's up to her now to decide. So, all right, so that's it through Facebook. Let me double check one more time before we hop back over to Instagram. I almost missed these. I'm glad I went back. All right, let's check Twitter. Just be sure there's nothing new there. All right, so back to Instagram. It says, if you could have done anything other than being in law enforcement, what would it have been?
I mean, the only other alternative that we had talked about is being in youth ministry, but other than that, I don't think there is anything else.
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered that earlier. The only thing that we have talked about from time to time is, even before we redid this, because we've done a few things along throughout the years where we helped a friend just kind of demolish houses while he was reconstructing them. We always did it together. And we've talked several times about wishing we were in some kind of business together to where we could work all the time. Because believe it or not, we do enjoy being around each other, at least 99% of the time. And so we have talked about before that it would be cool to have some kind of business together, but never really thought about what kind of business, really, I guess. But anyway, those are the only things that we've ever really talked about through all the years. All right, so I've checked everywhere, Facebook and Twitter again, just to make sure that we got all the questions there. So we have one more. You ready for it? Because it's for you.
Let's go.
All right, what are some of the differences about being a police officer now compared to when you first started? Example, as in safety. She says, I know you don't patrol the road anymore, but for your officers who do. Things have changed a lot. You've been in law enforcement a long time. Mm-hmm. Started in 1992. So that's, how many years is that? 24?
24.
24 years. That's a long time to be in law enforcement. You started at the city. Mm-hmm. Then you moved to the county.
Yep.
And so we're not in a huge, big metropolitan area like New York or LA or none of that. But you have seen things from what would be considered a more urban outlook versus the rural outlook of the county. Because in the county, you guys deal with all the stuff way out in the boonies. So it's a different...
It's a mixture.
Yeah, it's kind of a mixture. And so, how has things changed? I mean, there's been a lot that's changed in that long of a time period.
As far as safety is concerned, I don't know that much has changed on our end, because officer safety is preached in the academy. I mean, the whole time it's nothing but officer safety, officer safety. The only thing that has really changed is now there's more of a push from some people in society to kill law enforcement officers more than before. And many...
But hold on, I want to interject there before you keep going, because that just reminded me, I totally forgot about this. You remember though when you very first started, like you had not been out very long, and we had a motorcycle gang around here that their big thing was, in order to like elevate in the ranks in their little club, had to kill a law officer. And that was scary. Like, I mean, it's never been that law enforcement wasn't necessarily targeted. Maybe more now, or maybe we're hearing more of it now on national news or whatever. But it's kind of always been in the back of your mind that you were an open target for people who just wanted to be mean.
Right.
I totally forgot about that till right now. Scary stuff. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So what I was saying is, now the shift has been where people were trying to ambush law enforcement officers, whereas before they would just have some type of interaction and that violence would escalate. Now it's kind of like surprise attacks. So the shift is, just more of an awareness of your surroundings, really, because you're now looking for that ambush. So,
and how do you? What's your concern for us? Because everybody in our county knows where you live, because they do not have. Well, you do have an unmarked vehicle, but people know you as Captain Rose. They've learned your vehicle, so they've all, people in the south end of the county may not know where you live, but everybody in this end of the county. We've had people just show up at the door whenever it's been after hours because they know where you live and they want information, and they have no problem driving up and knocking on the door. That was scary for me the first few times it happened, but more so recently, because not only are officers being ambushed, but their families have been. Right. We have heard the reports where people have found out where the officer's family live, and instead of hurting the officer, they feel like it's more hurtful to the officer to hurt their family, where the officer has to then live with that fact. So has that element of worry increased with you, with people knowing where we live? And
I don't know that it's increased, because I've always had that concern, and there are multiple times to where if we're together and I think somebody's behind us, I purposely will turn a certain way or into our house. I'll go a long way around to get back to the house, just for that safety mechanism.
Yeah, because I mean, let's just be honest, we're just going to be blunt here, because that's how we roll here. A lot of the people that you have dealt with through the years are people that have serious issues, and whatever issues it was that has driven them to crime, whether it's through burglary, whether it's through violence, whether it's through drugs, whatever the issue was that caused you to have an encounter with them, when they have to spend a night in jail, they always blame you instead of themselves.
Right.
I don't know of one criminal yet, until they're really coming through on the other side, getting the final epiphany that, whoa, it's my decisions that are landing me here. Law enforcement is always the one that's blamed, And matter of fact, I've heard a couple people on some channels recently that have issues with the police, and it's really quite aggravating, because most of their issues with the police are because the police are doing their job, upholding the law. Someone's breaking the law, no matter how much of a misdemeanor it may be to a big felony. Either way, these people are doing something wrong, but they want to blame you guys when they get caught. And so their aggression and their anger goes out towards you guys, right, or your family. And so that's always been a concern of ours all along. I mean, there's just no way to escape that, because a lot of times people in that frame of mind will retaliate. Right. They seek to retaliate. So It's just something that you had. Do you think, though, her question was, do you think that's worse now? Is that pretty much kind of the same? Do you feel that that's more of a threat now?
I think it's more of a threat in that there's more of a disrespect for law enforcement. And I'll be honest with you, I think some law enforcement communities are partly to blame in that. In that respect is a two-way street. In that if you treat everybody with dignity and respect, you normally will get dignity and respect back from those people that even I've arrested personally. And I personally had people tell me that they appreciated me doing my job in a respectful way, and there wasn't that disrespect issue because I didn't step out of the car in a disrespectful manner towards them. And it was always on the street, you know, respect is a two-way street. So, and unfortunately, law enforcement is not exempt from having people that don't need to be in the profession, but don't stereotype us and put us all into that same category because we're not all the same. So.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing as the wife that aggravates me is because we have seen in recent years a big stereotype against all police. But yet the people that are stereotyping you are the same people that are asking, don't stereotype us.
Right.
So, I mean, that is a two-way street. You don't want to be stereotyped because of where you're from. Don't stereotype someone else from where they're from. And we just see that on all levels, not only in law enforcement, but even on the ministry side, just life in general. I mean, it's not really necessarily a law enforcement thing, but has policing in general changed much? Not necessarily the safety aspect of it, but just the way that you guys handle things. Does it feel like crime is different? Are people more aggressive than they used to be? Are there more issues that you're dealing with maybe? Or is that kind of just status quo and people are people? I mean...
Well, I think as a whole, crime is down. Violence towards law enforcement is up. And I think it just goes back to that level of respect is not there. And
what do you think causes that? Because I have my opinions on that. I think a lot of that, I think a lot of that is fed through media.
I think a lot of it is media based. But again, and I was talking to a couple guys last night, is if you look at law enforcement in different parts of the country, the way we typically do law enforcement in Florida and in the South is a lot different. So you don't see as much of an issue with that in the South as you do in other parts of the country. And I think that's because we do law enforcement different, and that for the most part, you know, we respect everybody, or at least we try to, and you don't have that resistance from the people you deal with as much.
Yeah, but I think on another side of that, I have to look at it from a different perspective, that I see where people that have gotten in trouble with any law enforcement, or you know yourself, rebellion in general is escalated. And we know that. The Bible tells us in the last days that men will be rebellious and they don't want to be told what to do. You have programming on TV that promotes anarchy and rebellion against society and against rules, and things are put out there for people to not have to be accountable for their actions. And when our young people and young adults are feeding on that, then it breeds, no matter how respectful an officer may be towards them, no matter how good a department may be at handling their own policies and procedures, when it's constant, I'm just going to be honest with you. We were at one of Bub's soccer games recently, and they were playing some music over the loudspeakers that was so appalling, and it talked about shooting officers and disrespect of officers and this kind of stuff. So when our kids are hearing that music and they're listening to those lyrics and they start singing along, parents may think that doesn't have an effect, but it does. Deep down inside, it breeds seeds of rebellion. And so I think that, yes, some of it has to do with the disrespect from law officers and the bad apples that have spoiled the whole bunch, but a lot of it too has to do with what they're being fed. And it's like a programming that has really targeted a young generation to hate anybody, not just police, any authority over their lives. And it is a rebellion that is seated deeply. I mean, would you agree with that?
I would agree with that, because people don't like being in trouble, and a lot of people resent you taking any type of enforcement action on them because they feel like they should be able to do what they want to do.
Well, they have t-shirts that say, do what thou wilt.
Yeah.
I mean, so the whole idea is spread that just do what you want to do. You're free to do what you want to do. Truth is relevant. You know, there's no absolute truth anymore. It's all relevant. If what's truth to you may not be truth for me, and if it's your truth, then live it. And so that's a lot of what we're dealing with. It's a mindset. It's a paradigm shift that I believe has happened in the thinking of people. And my personal opinion is parents would be wise to cut some entertainment off for a while. Stop letting your kids feed on this junk, this garbage. Know what they're watching. Know what they're listening to. You know, some of you may be dealing with rebellion even in your own home, and you're like, man, where's this coming from? My kids are so aggressive to me. Take a look at what they're listening to and what they're watching, because some of this stuff is being on even a subconscious level, that it is coming through in the action. So anyway, we've been talking a long time.
Yeah.
This is going to be a long one, you guys. So hopefully if you've made it this far, thank you. We are going to start Real Talk back. Not sure that we'll have a chance to do that this week, because with you getting into your new job and just coming off of the holidays and trying to get things done around here, we might not have time to record it this week, but hopefully next week. Yeah. So, well, if you haven't seen a Real Talk yet, I'm going to have the playlist link for you down below. You can hop over there and take a look at some of the past ones. We've talked about things like infidelity. We have talked about law enforcement a little bit. We talked about how we met, budgeting. We've talked about that a little bit. So there's all kind of information for you there already. Make sure you take a look at that. And hopefully next week we'll be back to getting those recorded for you regularly. But thanks for joining me.
You're welcome.
These people love to hear from you.
I don't know why.
They do. They love to. And these were some great questions. So thanks, you guys. Every week I'm always amazed, because the questions 99.9% of the time are different, and just learning different aspects of us, and it's fun because that shows us different aspects of you guys as well. So we're going to go ahead and jump off of here and get started with our day. We got a lot to do. If you're following the vlogs, then you know we got a lot to do. So we're going to go ahead and say goodbye to all of you guys. Thank you very much for watching, and Happy New Year.
Yes.
It's a brand new year. All right, we'll see you soon in the next video.